Okay, we should be working now. Okay. Well, I'm going to start this, and hopefully we have somebody watching that will tell me if it starts working. YouTube should be like 15 seconds behind our voice chat and Discord. All right, so let's get started. Hello, everybody. So this is one of my favorite threads on the Rhino forum, and I'll put it in the Discord server. But it's how do you learn to do surface modeling professionally? And they were talking about, you know, stuff being good enough. And, you know, cars have to have that perfect surface where there's G2 continuity between all the different things. And if you go through this thread, there's a lot of good video tutorials on surface modeling. And, you know, highly reflective surfaces like cars or boats, you know, shiny metal, you need these perfect surface reflections. And that's important. And you would think that's important for jewelry as well. And it is, but we go through a step that car makers don't go through. You know, when they make a hood panel, they paint it, they're done. When we make something, we cast it. So right here, I made this model in 30 minutes. If I would have actually gone for, you know, perfect surface modeling, this is just a pipe. There's a curve right there. You know, that's just a pipe. Undo. There we go. But if I look at it from the front side and I have a guide curve here, I can see that this pipe, it's not perfectly continuous. I mean, they don't even join together. They're not even G0 continuous. But if I look at the general shape of it, you know, with this guide curve that I have on my layer 0 that I use for guides, you know, I don't want stones to come past here because then it wears into the neighboring finger and it's uncomfortable to wear. But I can see that that's pretty continuous if I ignore the textbook definition of it. So that when I take it into 3D Coat and do a quick smooth, here I'll bring in the, like this whole thing from start to finish with 3D Coat was a 30-minute job. And I've got names on here, so I've okay. I've got to do the BRB screen anytime I you know, bring up customer names or anything. You know, when we take it into 3D Coat and just run smooth on it right there and, you know, merge it all together. The reason these are on different layers is sometimes 3D Coat does not like, you know, these being coincident. Sometimes 3D Coat will balk at that, so I put them on different layers. You know, let's just take it into 3D Coat. So I'm going to undo the import. And this is the way that I save things. So right now I have a little thing that says what is open, and the shank is open. Everything else is closed because the pipes were capped. But that's really all this is, a shank and one curve. Well, two curves. There's 6 prongs. This is how I save it, and then I'll take all this and I'll break history on it, and I'll take that and I'll join it, and then I dump the whole thing to 3D Coat. Okay, and I have to touch file names again, so 1 second. Okay, so I just did file import mesh for voxelization and pick this file out. That's all I've done to this point. But you know, it remembers the last scale you did, but I usually scale it by 25, or if there's a lot of detail, I'll do, you know, closer to 3000, but 2500 is good for most things. And then import as child is really the only thing, so you get the layers in here. You know, when you hit apply, your Rhino layers, so if I look back at my Rhino layers here, I have a gem layer with gems. That is the white gem. I have my geometry layers with the sprue and the shank, and then I have a cutters layer. And the reason I separated it out like this is because it's easier to pick up in 3D Coat. It's easier to pick up in 3D Coat. Okay, all my cutters are down here. So I usually work with those last. And then the gems, I make those white so I can do a little screen cap of it. The sprue I don't need right now, but the shank, the prongs, and the prongs are split into 2. So I've got one side and the other side. So I'm just going to merge with shank, merge with shank, merge with shank. Oh, I did the wrong button, didn't I? Merge with shank. Merge with shank. My microphone is in the way. I can't see that very well. And then the cutters, if you look at the cutter compared to the gem, you can see that the cutter is undersized. I just want to score the prong so that the setter can see where to cut so it gets level. And you can see that the prongs are extended, so he has some leverage. So I'll take that cutter and I will subtract from shank, and that gives them a little bit of bite. I did not export one of the prongs. I turned it off and never turned it back on. Silly me. And I don't have my Wacom because I've got this streaming setup. But literally just turn on symmetry. I can see that that's a little bit proud right there. So I would just scrape the top of it. I don't have a pen, so I'm doing this with the mouse. I don't have touch control. And then grab fill and just smooth the crap out of that. Come in here, smooth all this, smooth that, smooth those guys. And I don't like having too sharp of an edge right here, so I would just lightly touch that, and then smooth the crap out of that. And that's done. I do a smooth all, which I have bound to Control R. I would hit Control R a couple of times, switch this over to get out of voxels and go into the mesh room. So now this is a mesh, and decimate the mesh. My target is usually about 85% for the geometry, and I'll hit OK and show wireframe. I have bound to W, and that looks like plenty of detail. You know, these are flat areas and they're not too big of triangles. So on my curved areas, I'll have enough triangles there. Then I do the sprue, make that a surface, decimate 98% on the sprue, because I only need about 4,000 triangles to, you know, the sprue that I actually cast with and the support that I use for the bottom, you don't need a lot of triangles for that. And then Control A, which would bring up export all, but I don't want to show that screen. And save it as an STL. And literally, like, in less than 5 minutes in this program. But if I would have tried to make this surface modeled in Rhino, easily an hour, you know, to take this shank, to get nice transitions to here, have a nice fillet between these two, have a nice fillet between those. I mean, that I'm easily looking at an hour's worth of work. You know, but we are making polished metal, and having a good, having good continuity is important. And then the other thing to remember is, even after we do all this, we're going to print on a printer, you know, that has 30 micron resolution, stair stepping. We're going to cast. We're going to get, you know, a crappy surface finish from the casting that has to be sanded and polished. So even if there is this little bump, like if I did not fix that bump in here, you know, real quickly, sand stick would, and we're going to use a sand stick on it. So we need like the overall shape to be continuous, not actual G2 continuity. And by doing things like this, we can speed up workflows a lot. And, you know, there's some, they talk about people doing dirty version of surface modeling, which is really fast, really coarse, and not paying attention at all to the mathematical numbers of continuity between two surfaces. So down and dirty is what I do all day, as fast as possible, get it done, because we don't have time to spend 4 hours on this. And it'll look the same as me spending 30 minutes doing it the way I did. And then the other thing that, got me thinking was all of the sub D stuff. So if you look, there's always, I guess that's the Rhino's news, Rhino 3D. And in the news, there's all of this sub D stuff. Sub D modeling in Rhino for jewelry. You see lots of them. And we all love TSplines. We all love TSplines. We used it, and it looks very similar to sub D, but what was the number one thing that we use TSplines for? I'm going to make a new file here. No, do not save changes. I save changes before I break history and join everything together. That way I can come back and edit it later. And usually all the changes that I make after I break history are like 30 seconds worth of changes. It's select open surfaces. You can see everything on this right here is after I break history. Boolean difference, cap. A lot of times I'll just leave a planar hole in something. For example, let me start a new version of Rhino on the other screen. Hello? Can you hear me now? Okay. This is like the third time in 2 days that RTX Voice has crashed. So it's nice because I have a lot of background noise here. You know what? Let me shut my door. What was I saying when the mic pooped out? I was explaining about how I export, how I save, like at what point I save, and then I have like 30 seconds of work after I save before I export to 3D Coat. Nice. When did the mic cut out? So I can back up a little bit. About a minute ago. Did I already copy this in? Okay, so I'm just gonna undo this just a little bit to here, and I'll start over. Let me also close my door because there's a lot of background noise. 1 second. Okay, so this is from another file, and this is where I would have saved this model. And right now these prongs have history, so I could go in. I didn't copy over the input curves for them, but I could adjust this prong, and you know, there's 4 curves that make up the whole thing, and I can adjust it. And you know, I don't want the bottom to bow out as much, or I want to make the top wider or longer. I do all that, save the file, and then when I'm ready to export, there's 30 seconds worth of work. I grab everything and I break history on it, and then over here, sometimes I'll pin this out. I select my open surfaces and join them, and then I select my open surfaces and cap them. And now I should not have any more open surfaces in what I export to 3D Coat. I just click that button and I'm over to 3D Coat. So between saving the file, like the one that I keep in Rhino, I've got all my history, and then there's like 30 seconds worth of work before it goes to 3D Coat. And then in 3D Coat, I'm in there for maybe 3 or 4 minutes. Like it's just a quick workflow, and that solves, I mean, that saves hours. That saves hours in time per day, not having to deal with booleans and fillets and perfect G2 continuity in Rhino. So I'm gonna delete that. Actually, I'll just undo back to before it got in, so that that's not messed up. All right. So the other thing, that I'm seeing is a lot of sub D stuff and how it's being pushed for jewelry, and I can't actually find sub D thing for jewelry, but it looks a lot like, let me throw a curve in here. Try that again. And then I'm going to do a polar array with 3 items, 360. Okay. And then I'm going to say multi-pipe, I think is the name of it, which is the sub D, and I want the radius to be 1, sure. Cap ends on, sure. 0 for smooth curves. Okay. And we'll set that to shaded and embiggen. All right, and you're looking at this and you're going, wow, that looks, you know, a lot like TS pipe. which is what we use TSplines for. Pretty much everything we did with TSplines started as a TS pipe. But here's where it's not like TS pipe. Well, there's no history on it. And what else is missing from TS pipe? If I go back through and run that command again, pipe radius 1. Well, where's the radius? It's the whole thing. There's only one radius. Okay. How many segments? Can't really say that. How do you align the quads? How do you set what kind of intersection this is? You know, all the things that we had. Here, I'll do it in this one. I don't have my curve degree 5. I need to bring my toolbars over here. I've let them get too far out of sync between the two. Array polar. I want 3 of them in a 360. That's fine. TS pipe. Okay. You can see how the joint will be. You can see where these are going to line up. I can set the radius for, let's see, I would set the radius for all of them to 2, and then come in and set this radius to 1, and that radius to 1, and that radius to 1. All right, and we can say, we can preview the output. Let's do box shaded, and let's set our display mode to shaded. TS shiny. Okay, so now you can see the box layout. You can see how this is coming together. You can change how that joint is. Output type we want to be smooth. Oh, that changed it. We can tell it the joints we want to use diamond. Okay, and we can get a different layout for it that way. We can say spikes, which is what it was, and we can do square, which is close to the diamond, but the ends change. Nope. Yeah, the ends change with that one. I like the square for this particular one, but there's sometimes that you need to switch between this one and this one. We have all of that. Okay, do that, and then I want to take that curve. Oh, we're not in points. On. Look at that, we have history. Now it forgot some of our settings, but if we run TS pipe again, it will reapply those settings. So we did have history, even if it was a little buggy, because, well, TSplines, for all the good that it did, it had its bugs. But this was great. You know, if you go back and look at any of Botha's tutorials, which I don't know if they are on YouTube anymore. Maybe I'll ask him if I can put them up. Just the relevant bits about where we used TS pipe. You know, he did that dragon tutorial. He did a lot of tutorials, and almost all of them started with the TS pipe. We loved it because there was history. We loved it because we could control the radius as it went down, and the only reason we did it instead of plain NURBS is because we would get that joint in the middle that was this nice blend between them. This is missing all of that. Like, this does not do what we wanted it to do. And the other thing that was great about TSplines was you could set up something up here and say the symmetry is across Let me go back to this one. You could say symmetry was across this seam, and it would always mirror the points over to the other seam. Rhino sub D, the symmetry is on the X or Y axis. You can't just forget an arbitrary plane, but an arbitrary seam where the points would get mirrored over to the other side. You don't have that as well. So when people ask me what I think of sub D for jewelry, I mean, maybe it would be nice for something someday, but the hack that we used for getting a base shape and then, putting stones on it, we don't have that. We need TS pipe in Rhino for sub D to work the way that we all used it back in the Rhino 5 days. And I think very few people started out with a patch layout, but there were some people that did, and that's where I got the idea for this workflow. So I know I've just like rambled for way too long to set up what gave me the idea to do this, but basically we are going to do sub D-ish things with Rhino, and I'm going to build something for my parts library. So the last full video I did, we built this shank, and I've been using it every day since. It's a wonderful shank. I'm gonna flow this onto here, and then I work with history lock, so I can just take that whole thing, bump it up 60, take that whole thing, drop it back 30, minus 30. Okay, and now I work with history locked. History is locked, so I did not break history. If I change this to be a fat shank, and there's a whole video where I built this from scratch that you can find on the YouTubes. But I have this shank, and today we're going to build a halo doing the same kind of process, and it works in my head. So and I pretty much just need 4 curves to control the whole thing. So we're going to work off of 0. I'm going to just hide the layout and the shank layers, and we're going to start here, and I'm just going to stick a 1 carat center into the center of it. Leo Brilliant prong 6 1/4 at 0, okay? And we'll start it here because it doesn't matter where it is. So from here I would have, I need 4 curves to start this out. And I don't know that I could get history between all 4 of those. You know what? We're just going to do it stupid. We're going to go this way. And I want that to be like that. So that's our 1 curve. We're going to offset smooth. We're going to come out. Oh, I'm going to have to BRB. They're calling me from the showroom. Sorry, guys. Okay, I am back. Sorry, all week I didn't get called to the showroom floor once, and then today's one of those days, I guess. I'm gonna put another little marker in the stream. Okay, and I already decided I want to make this four points instead of 3. We're gonna make it a 3-4. And I really do want it to be square, so let's do this. Mirror that, and then draw another line between. Join that up. Oh, couldn't do that because I've got lock children on. Join that up, and then rebuild 3, 4. No, change degree to 3. That didn't work. I don't want to get stupid with it. I had an idea to get stupid with it, but that would just be too complicated, I think. Using the new Joincopy. I'm just going to use some corner square. And, you know, 1.3 is kind of the main stone size. So if we do like 1/4 millimeter gap there, and then a 1/4 millimeter gap on the other side, that's 1/2 millimeter on top of the on top of the 1.3, so that's 1.8. So now I can scale off of here for these 2 points and get this curve to line up. Just those points. And now that curve is right there on that line. And we'll take that and we'll scale 2D with a copy and get another one there. Take that. All right, so there's our outside curve and our inside curve. I don't think I'm going to need these again, but I might. So I'm just going to change object layer and turn those off. And we can drop that. So there's my first 2 curves. And then I'm going to need these guys down. Usually I make I I'm going to go full stupid. What is this? Where'd those come from? Yeah, I'm gonna make this full stupid workflow. Delete those. Explode. Not change programs. Explode those. Explode those. We don't want these. Delete. We want to take and mirror. Now, this won't always be useful. You know, if we look at our stone shapes, This will always be useful for rounds, but it won't be useful for a baguette because it's not going to have, you know, pretty much stones with quad symmetry. So cushion cuts, rounds, ovals are not quad symmetry. They have 2 symmetry axes. Pears have 2. Princess has 4. Trillion doesn't have any. But I'm going to start this way so that when I take and move these points down... Oh, I need a better way to do that, don't I? Let's try this. Mirror across here. And then say, there is a curve through point. Curve through points. I'm going to do this for flexibility later on. Okay, we've got history on that. Do it again for this. And we've got history on that. So now we've got these points that are giving us all that history. Okay. So these points need to go on. We're going to come over here to our head layer, and I'm going to make a new layer called control. So all of the things that are going to control this head, I'm going to put over there. And this intermediary stuff, I'm going to make a junk layer. And that's going to live on junk. There's no reason to ever really change anything on the junk layer. And then our output curves that we're going to use for construction are going to come last. So we get that from saying curve from what is it called? You know, if you take this curve, you can extract control polygon, which will give you this. And if you take that curve, and call this curve through polyline, it'll give it you back. So you can go from here to here or from there to there with those commands. Okay, so these two end up being on our curve layer. All right, and now we just need, I'm going to use, should I use the points? I said I was going full stupid. So we're going to take the control points, and I'm going to drop them down about 1.5 millimeters, 1.5, wrong way. Select last. Negative 1.5. And I'm taking my time to do this because this is going to be a library object. I'm going to always use this for every halo I ever make going forward. You know, the end goal is you adjust a couple of points and you can make a halo in any shape that you want. That's like the ultimate goal here. Okay, and then usually you put a little canter on a halo, but I don't need that for this. Which begs the question, so why am I making it this way? I can get the canter another way. I can get the canter another way. So really all I need is these curves copied down -1.5. This number is going to be fixed. If I ever need to change this from, you know, for a thicker depth or a shallower depth, I will have to break the history chain. A cant, slant, let me pull up a halo that I normally build from scratch, but that requires file names and they all have customer names in them, so I will be right back while I grab an actual halo. Okay, so I've got a halo, and if we isolate this and look at it from the front, you can see that there's a little bit of a cant to this. You know, this is not a 90-degree turn, but there is a little bit of a cant to the shape. And then I don't like it flat on the bottom, because when I'm printing, here are my supports for the printer. And if I look at it from the bottom, you can see that the support goes and touches right there at the edge. So I don't have to put a printing support between those spans. Yeah, a slant. So instead of it being draft angle, sure. Polyline, there we go. So instead of building a halo like this where it's squared off, it has a little bit of a cant. And it's not 90 degrees here either, I don't think. That might be close to 90. But this angle should not be 90. So it's close, but it's not 90 on that angle. And that angle depends. Like sometimes you're going to have this, you know, this edge up higher. No, it won't do that. Let's see about this one. That should work. Lock, no. Yeah. You know, sometimes you're going to have that angle be a little bit less. Sometimes you're going to... It'll never be flat, though. Never make your halos flat. Ever. The draft on the top is for beauty. You don't want a flat halo on top, because then... Let's see if my stone's updated. Nope, they didn't. Right now, each of these stones, if they were perfectly flat on top, and the setter goes to set it, and you have, and they're looking at the ring and they like it, and then a ray of light comes in, and all of these are on the same plane, Every single diamond goes into, will have the same brilliance. So, let's go to Google Images here and look at some pictures of rings with halos. Okay, that's a big render. Come on, actual photo here, come on. Actual photo on the internet. They don't make those anymore. There's no light on this. I'm trying to show you one where it's lit up. Okay, so I think this is the closest that I'm going to get to showing you. You see how this stone is in full brightness right now? It's kind of a glass sheet, but this one next to it is not. And these guys are, you know, that one's in full brightness, but that one's in half, that one's in shadow. And as you go around each of these tables, the angle has to only be off by a, you know, like half a degree. And if that angle's off by half a degree, then when the light hits it, not everything will be in full brightness or full shadow at the same time. It will have varying degrees. It will sparkle better. This being flat, that will not sparkle. I really, really, really try never to have two stones set at the exact same angle. So if a ray of light comes in and hits this ring, no two stones should be in highlight at the same time because none of them are on the same plane. These are all on different planes. And then undo, 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 undo. And then the bottom, that is slanted for manufacturing purposes. So if I'm looking at this from the front, you see where the supports hit. Where's the shank? Nope, shank. You see where the shank hits. You see where those supports hit. I do not have to put one printing support between here. This is all, like this prints without a single support. I put in my standard sprue, which I grabbed one before I was keeping the sprue in the model. Let me grab it from this file, sprue. Go to the front. So my little sprue here, there's a point. I move that point to the very base of the ring, hit print. It's the same one I use on every file, and it gives me the same depth for where it attaches to the tree. If it's a little bit too wide, I grab, I didn't call join on this yet, did I? Join. I need to change that in the file template. I just taper that down until it hits right there. This prints with 0 supports, straight to the printer. Huge time savings by building this like this. Now, if it was completely flat and it tried to build this whole section at the same time on the printer, that is a big, flat, your printer's printing at 30 microns a slice. So just imagine a 30 micron slice that is 2 millimeters wide by 3 millimeters long, 30 microns thick. The printer goes to lift and peel that layer off, and it will tear in half. And then you'll get all of this, you'll get this peeling effect on your print where you just have these, you know, just all of these peels. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? Have you seen that when you don't support a long overhang? If you don't put a support right there, it will tear right there because it's so thin when it first starts making. But if we make, let me just isolate this again. Instead of making this a 2mm wide sliver, we make it a 30 micron sliver. Now that's a really far distance, so it goes to print, it's going to peel. But that'll end up as, you know, floaties in your tank that you have to strain out from time to time. But at some point we'll get to a certain thickness wide where this gap, it peels off. It's not a lot of surface area. It's not a lot of sticking force on the print bed. So when you peel that off, it will come off as one piece. And then the next one, now it's 60 microns thick. Now it's 90 microns thick. So that by the time you get to this 2mm wide span, it's thick enough to support the pull force when the print head lift, not the print head, the print table, when the print table lifts up, it's thick enough to support all of that stress. Like even a printer like the B9 core that I have, there is no adhesion between the printed material and that, I forget the name of that vac coating, whatever it is. Even though there's no adhesion force, there's still vacuum force. There's still suction, you know. So as you lift up, that creates a vacuum, and the resin has to slowly go in to fill that space. So that's why on the B9 core, if you print something very wide, it lifts slower than if you print something very narrow. It's always looking at the difference in the slices. And if there's a big jump, it will lift slower because it has to allow for that vacuum, allow for that resin to make its way into that void. So did I answer that question? And you guys should really feel free to come in the Discord and hang out in voice chat. So I like talking to other people and having people ask me questions when I start rambling and get me back on track. Okay, so back to, is that where this one, yes. This is where we were. That is one of the benefits of the SolidScape, that you don't have to worry about supports and free-floating islands. But the changes that I've made in modeling to support using the B9 core or an SLA printer is not that difficult. It's just I had to choose an angle. Did I choose flat or did I put it on an angle? I had to put supports in. You know, where did I put them? I made them equidistant so that, you know, I wouldn't need to stick a support tip in there. Those kind of changes that I've had to make have not noticeably increased the time that it takes to make a model. And then I get the benefit of having SLA, which is a much nicer surface finish, because, you know, the downside of the SolidScape is that you're firing a beam of molten wax at a plate, and when that molten wax hits that plate, it splatters. And there's nothing you can do about it. That's just, there's no way to overcome that kind of physics. And a beam of light goes in a straight line. So you're going to have much better layer to layer, what's the word? Layer to layer accuracy, not having the splatter and using a beam of light instead of, you know, the SolidScape, the head could be more accurate if it went slower. It races around there. And I had a SolidScape T76. Is that what it was called? Plus for like 6 years before I got SLA printers. So I know all about, you know, how they work. But it races around like a madman because the extra accuracy it could get from running slower is completely lost in the fact that you're firing a liquid at a plate and it will splatter once it hits. So the speed is as fast as they can get away with without hurting the surface finish. Because slowing it down is not going to improve the finish at all. And when you have a 72-hour print, you don't want to slow down that print head very much. Okay, so I said I was going to do this, but then I have completely lost that thread that I was working on. Because I do want that to canter in. I do want to have a slight angle to it. I do want to have a slight angle to that. That's just the Rhino options, and I do have my options somewhere that is linked to. I export my options. The only thing is when you import my options, the black window text, here, it's under Tools, Options, Appearance, and my background is black, my text color is green, and the hover color is yellow. Yes, Spunky. Hush. I do have all of my options somewhere. You just do not want to import my hotkeys, because my hotkeys are set up just for me, and there is no way keyboard, like, there is no way you want to be using these pop-up toolbar. I have R7 main, top, left, and right, because my mouse supports gestures. So when I gesture up, it does the top toolbar. If I hit the button and don't gesture, it gives me main. If I gesture left or right, it gives me those. If I gesture down, it gives me main again. So I have four pop-ups. I try not to touch the keyboard when I model. I try and do everything with one hand on my mouse and the other hand on my space mouse. I do not like touching the keyboard because that slows me down. So pretty much the only time I touch the keyboard is to enter numbers. All the commands I need are organized. So these are most of the deformation tools, move tools. This is creation tools, line from midpoint, polyline, normal to a surface, offset, loft, surface from edges, planar, sweeps, rebuild, ISO curves, intersections. And then this is stuff that breaks history, usually, or stuff that I do. The blends should probably be somewhere else. The blend should probably be on this one, but they just started here and they're still there. I don't know. And then I have like little workspaces where I can put a macro in. Yeah, Spunky, but you're not using the space mouse. Like, I try and not have to move either hand. Well, dang it, I lost my train of thought. I said that I could do it this way. Okay, I'm going to keep going and it'll probably come to me at some point. But I'm going to loft these guys. And I'm going to make this straight sections, closed loft. Okay. And I want to take this and change or set object display mode. And I want the mode to use wireframe, so I don't have to see it. So these curves, I lied, they're not curves, they are junk. Those are going onto the junk layer. And I can start hiding the junk. Okay, so what we've built so far is we have this thing. We have these 8 points that control this. And we've got, well, really we've got 4 points with a mirror. And if we started doing a marquee shape, then I would break those points and we could quickly move this into a marquee halo, right? But if I'm doing a round, then I don't want to break those so that I have, like, I can change, you know, if we pull in a bigger stone, I can quickly change that to match a bigger stone. If we're using bigger stones than 1.3, I can quickly change that to bigger than 1.3. Okay, so that's where we are on history so far. Those 4 points are controlling everything. We have the option of breaking those 4 points to do 2 symmetry instead of quad symmetry. And we have this box. Now I'm going to take and extract an isocurve from this and toggle that the other way. And I want to grab an isocurve, let's say right there and right there. And then I want to grab an isocurve on the edge and right next to the edge, and I want to grab one in the middle, and the same for over here, close to the edge and on the edge. And then we're going to do this one, and right there, and right there. I'm going to put this box on a junk layer. No, I don't want it on the junk layer because that'll get too confusing. I'm going to make a new layer for the box. Let's call it box mode. So if you've done sub D or if you've done TSplines, maybe you can see where this is going. And let's just make it red. Okay. Let's extract some more curves, and let's say one there and one there. Now I'm going to loft loose. So I want my seam to be on the bottom. Actually, here is a good point for a seam, because if we do booleans, we don't want our booleans to really go over a seam if we don't have to. So we're going to say there, 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 the one on the edge, there, 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 the one on the edge. Nope. Let's turn the junk off. We don't want the junk. We want that one, that one. Okay, and now we're going to say loose, closed, and tell it okay. This is what I think I was thinking. Now that's kind of a funky shape, but I can, this is the stupid thing about Rhino history. And if you want to support me in my list of things to fix in Rhino that are stupid, there is a toggle command. No. Oh, it's it got marked as a duplicate. History. special characters for locking children. If you want to support me in getting stupid things fixed, there is this. In Rhino scripting, there's a way for you to, for one command, turn on history. So if you have record history off, you can say pound arc blend, and that will turn history on just for that one command. Or if you're always recording history and you don't want to record history, there's a %. You can say %arc blend, and then it will do an arc blend without recording history. I want one for locking children. So this is the request. Add 2 more little prefixes so that you can say join and delete. Because if I'm deleting something, that's great. I'm pretty sure I know I'm going to break history on it, right? The whole point of lock children is to not accidentally break history. But this is what infuriates me. So blend curve edges will never break history. So the setting of lock children is irrelevant. Blend curve edit, by definition, you are editing something from history. But if you have lock equal to yes, you can do all that work and you get done, and it doesn't actually do the edit. It cancels it because you had lock children on. So blend curve would be something that I would always prepend with disable lock children for the following command. I would just always have blend curve to not lock children. And this is a command where if I don't turn the lock off, I will not be able to edit an extracted ISO curve. Edit this guy and bring him over there. And then we might want a sharper corner in the front. And here is my halo. That is not as much of a canter as I would like. So I may see, I want to put the halo on another layer. That goes on the head layer, and actually, I think I'm going to start doing this for all of them. Just put an object layer underneath so that I can lock, change object layer, lock, and we'll use that orange. Orange is our head layer. So that I can't accidentally, I want to grab these guys, which are my curves. These guys are now my curve layers, so they go over there. Okay, so we have control. We have junk. This is never to be touched again. We have the box. We have our curves, and we have the object. So the curves don't need to be locked because we are going to move those, and we do have lock children on. I do not have lock children on because I had to turn it off because of this stupid thing where you can't edit history if history is locked. Okay. Now back to what I was doing. I think I want this to come up to here. So we start off going down, and I want this over to the edge. Like that. And then I want this over to here. And this can go up more. Let's check that against our other halo. Let's grab this. Let's undo. Okay. So this is a halo that I liked. Let's put it in here. Minus 30. Bring that down about the same height. Left clipping plane. Oh. Set view right. Unfortunate. This has, but I don't think that matters because our stone cutter is going to nip this edge. This is not as rounded, and if I make it more rounded, lock no, move ISO curve. Like the more rounded I make it, the less of an angle that it's going to have. So I think I would have liked these curves. Let's dump that on a temporary layer and hide it. Let's hide that too. And let's go back to our, let's turn the object off, turn those curves off, and just look at this box mode. So when I made it straight up and down, I wanted to bring those in. And if I would have done that, I think this would give me a better curve right here. But you can see that I can just slide these along here, and all of this is still being controlled by these guys. Scale 2D off of 0. But I think I need to do an extra step, so I'm just going to lose the simplicity of it by doing that. Like the big strike against this right now is that this distance is fixed at 1.5 millimeters, which is great for most things. But if I want to change it, then I've got to go to my junk, grab these curves, and promote them from junk to controls. And then I've got to take those control curves, turn off the junk again, take those control curves and break them. And then I can scale 2D off of 0 and get that slant the way I want. I would never spend this much time actually building a ring. This is going into my library that I'm going to use. Lock no. Edit extracted ISO curve. There. Oh, and this control curve that is on control needs to come up. And now I get the cant that I wanted. So that's more of the shape that I originally wanted. Oh, and like this part was no problem. How I had, you know, that being flat. Whatever crazy exotic angle that I want, I can do with this. And if I hadn't have broken, let me undo that break. There we go. So now if I take and do that, I can get this angle to be whatever I want it to be. And that is giving me the angle on the bottom side. That's why I said I could do it with 2 points earlier. That was what my brain was thinking, is that if I drop them both 1.5, I can still get this shape It's just not as aggressive as I would have liked it to be. But I can still get that shape. The reason, I mean, there's no problem with that. The halo, Newman, this halo is made off of a profile sweep. I ungroup that. This halo is made off of a profile sweep, but the benefit of this is I can have this thing set up where I can change the entire shape of it through 4 control points, and it just updates. So instead of having to do a profile, get a rail, sweep it for every halo, and then having to deal with a different setup for marquees and a different setup for blah, 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 blah. This would be one halo for every shape, controlled by 4 points. So that's the big picture, is I'm shaving off 10, 15 minutes. It's the same reason why, you know, my shank, it's the same reason that my shank that I love using. Yeah, I just import this, I just dump this into a file, and I already have a shank that with one set of control points, you know, I can adjust the thickness of the whole thing. And then if I need it to, you know, go kind of a cathedraly, you know, I can break this guy, and pop him up and bring this over, you know, and now I can get a cathedral shape. I have this one thing, 3D round architecture modeling. I don't know what that means where. And if you want the link to the Discord, it's in the video description. Okay. I don't know what you mean by 3D round architecture modeling, but it's just having, so my goal is to have a parts library in Rhino where I just bring things in and drop them down, and then I have very little work to do to get them from, you know, this shape to let me turn the shank off so you can see, and these temp layers off. Very little work to get it into, you know, that shape. And I think the play was to do 5 control points, not 4, now that I'm looking at this, but that's fine. I just wanted to go through this and feel how it works. I think this is going to be a problem. I don't think that gives enough control because we're locked into 1.5 millimeters on the thickness. So if you get some acorn rubies that need to be put in here and you need 2 millimeters of depth to handle those guys, you got to break history, and then you lose all this kind of stuff. So I think the play was to do 5 control points, 1 set for the top, 1 set for the bottom. And even though there's no history between the top and bottom, when you're working with it like this, you can grab an underset of control points pretty easy. You know, if the other set were right here, you can work with it in top view pretty easily. Joe, Ken, what do you guys think? Are you guys there? They might have had customers. Spunky, what do you think? I just had this thought looking at, you know, people doing sub D and having to flip to box mode to get everything to lay out right. And how much easier it is to move ISO curves on a box than it is to slide. You don't do a lot of halos? I do a lot of halos. And then the other thing is, I kind of want this offset, and now we're getting into grasshopper territory. You know, having this depth fixed at 1.5, that's an easy grasshopper fix. But most people aren't going to use grasshopper. And I don't necessarily want to use grasshopper because as soon as I make a definition and leave it for 5 minutes, I don't remember how it does what it does and if I need to change something. This is just all right out in the open Rhino history. Rally have history mode? You set up your... I've done it. It's just if I need to make a change to the shape and it's too much, I just end up making it by just going back to Rhino and using history. Yeah. Ken, I can't really, I've played with it a lot. I've made a head builder and it just doesn't feel flexible enough. Sorry. It is uber flexible. You can make it do anything, but the definitions get crazy out of hand complex. Like it's an exponential complexity curve. It starts simple, but you try and do this thing, and then you got to add 4 components to do that one thing, and then the complexity just explodes. It's just like this exponential growth of complexity with trying to figure out where things are flowing from here to there. And you can figure it out. You can do it. You can reuse it as long as you don't have to change anything. But if you need to change the definition at all, and you start figuring out where this is happening, it's really it is the, you know, embodiment of spaghetti code. You know, looking at a bowl of spaghetti and trying to find where one of the threads run, you just get lost. Using points, the problem with using points is that we cannot insert a control point to get more detail. So I think that is out. And I think I'm going to need 4 sets of controls, not 2, so that I can control the bottom depth and angle independently. All right, let's do it. Delete that, hide that, and we're going to take and unlock everything on our head layer. We're going to delete it, and we're going to take another run at this. I believe it's linked to in the YouTube video, but if not, maybe I didn't put it up on purpose so that you had to build it yourself so you understood how it worked. Because if you just get that file and you don't understand how these are related to each other and how these are related to each other, and then you want to go about editing it, like, it's not exactly straightforward. But if I break this one, that one's linked to it, and they all have names. So when you're looking at it from the left view, switch that back over to left view, set view left. When you're looking at it from the left view and you want to grab one of these, do you want 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6? That guy's 7. You know, I put the names on there. I don't do this for every file. I did it for this one because I'm going to use it all the time. And then because I've got lock history on, I can, you know, edit them all at the same time without breaking any of the history. Well, they are copies. Like, this one's a copy of that one. This one is not a copy of this one. It's a copy of that one. Right? So when I break history on this one, that one updates. This one updates that one updates that one updates that one, that one, da, 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 da. Welcome. All right, I think we figured it out now. I think this is going to work. So let's do V2. And I'm gonna turn this on just for the moment, and we are going to do polyline. And I want to do 3 points this time instead of 2. So I'm going to put a new curve on. And this is going to go on 0 because I need to, what I'm going to do, copy that, break that, take that perspective, drop that down by 1.5, negative 1.5. Okay, now these guys are all going to work independently of each other. So I'm going to go ahead and break them. And then I'm going to do the rest of the setup. So I want to mirror that across here. These are my controls, so I'm going to go ahead and move those over to the control layer. These are junk, and they will end up on the junk layer in just a second. The merge curve of, say, curve 5. Yeah, each one is its own merge curve. So that's the command we're going to use now. So I'm going to take and mirror this. You know, this is mirror across the X and then mirror across the Y. So we're going to do that. Boom, boom. And I'm going to ungroup that. So now I want the, I'm going to take all of these. I can turn that off for a little bit. Take all of those and call merge curve. This is new in V7. not merge curve, join curve. Joincopy. It's not I like it better than merge curve. So I put in one feature request that ended up being implemented twice. And Joincopy I think is the better one, but merge curve is the documented one. So we're going to say merge curve. And then I want to grab the full length ones, which is the new. Okay. And then we're going to call curve through polyline. And we're going to take that. So our last selection, that is going on to junk. Turn that off. The new ones we just made. It's not new. Select last, select new. Isn't populated. Those are going to go on to, we're going to hide them for right now. They're going to end up on junk. Okay, and then I want to take, these are my controls. So I'm going to take this, everything but my controls, and put those onto junk. So there's my controls. All right, now those curves that I hid, we're going to loft those. Boom, 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 boom. With... Oh no, I see a problem. It's a bug that's going to bite me in the ass here in a minute, but we'll see how far we get. That is our box. Set object display mode, nope, mode wireframed. Okay, there's our box. Now, the box's parents can go on to junk. We don't need those anymore. I want to make the control curves show up a little bit better. Something brighter than that. Let's go cyan. And all right, so now we have these four curves that control everything. We can say scale those in a little bit and have this one come up a little bit. And that gives us our basic shape. And then when we're editing this for the first time, so let's show our stone and size it to that. Let me go to top view. Okay, well, this shape is, there's the bug. I want to scale those 2D around here. Yeah, this isn't going to work. I thought it might, but it doesn't. If you want to support my bug list, you can come out here to Rhino, and this is join multiple input polylines. It's one of these on the join multiple input polylines where you need to be able to set the curve, which was in the original feature request, but is not in the command. So I will revisit this one later today. Let me open that in another tab so I remember to do that. So all these that are starred, these are the ones that I'm like watching every day. Give me something, McNeel, anything. So what happened is, I'm going to delete that. And if we look at our junk curves, these guys, the problem with merge curve is when you do something like this, it's saying that that's the curve seam, but it's not. If you look at them individually, that's that one, that's that one. There, that one moved over to there, and that one moved over to there. So these two curved seams are there, and these two curved seams are there. And when you're, and that's what happened. Our box was working fine until these curved seams jumped to over there, and then the whole thing went. So we can't do the box like that. That would have been nice. Let's open up our junk, and we can delete all of that. And we can get rid of all of that and just use these two. You know, if it's open on each end, then there is, you know, the curved seam doesn't matter. So we are going to call merge curve. Merge Joincopy, not merge curve. We're going to grab the last things we just made, and we're going to call curve through polyline. And then we are going to take these curves and make our box. Loft, boom, 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 boom. And now we can organize. So I'm going to put that onto the box layer and set, I need to make a command for this. There's our box, our control. All of these guys need to go onto junk, which means we should just be left with our 4 controls when we're done. Okay, we'll just have to do it like that until Joincopy gives us the ability to do specify a seam. And now we just extract some curves. So I like one in the middle. That's usually where I do the stone layout. One there, one there, one there, one there. There, there. Probably one at the bottom. And then we probably want it to have a sharpish corner there, although we can always move it, you know, later and get a softer corner. So now just loft these up. And I'm going to start here because that's where I want my seam to be. I don't want the seam to be... actually, we might boolean a prong on the inside of that. So our seam will never really boolean anything on the outside of the halo. So that's where I'm going to put the seam. Put it there. And then we're just going to wrap around. I'm going to do loose, close loft. I'm going to take and throw that onto our object layer. And these are going to go on the curves layer. Okay. So there's our basic shape, and then when we get our stone, show the stone. There we go. Go to the top view. the box is not. Where's the box? There's the box. Can you have it do for every viewport? The box is shaded again, but from the top it's wireframe. And from perspective it should be wireframe. I'll have to look at that and see if there's a way to set display. Set display. I wonder if it's under properties. Display color by layer. Render mesh settings. I'll look into that later and see if there's a way you can do it for every viewport instead of having to set it on each one. Okay, so we've got our object locked. We don't want to touch it. We need to edit the curves. We don't need to edit the box, but we probably want it on, and our control curves. So the first thing, we want to use the control curves. First things first, I think this is going to be usable in the end. So before I do a lot of crazy stuff, I want to select sublayer objects. And I'm going to save this, so BRB. Okay, so now it'll always be over here in my library, Halo V7. And this is great that you can pull stuff in and have this kind of history as a good template. The thing that's really holding us back is history import, multiple import objects with history. So this is the case that I gave McNeel. You can't do, like if I have a bunch of these bezels, these square bezels, you can't do this with blocks, because when you scale the block, you know, this is a 0.5 millimeter edge. They're going to cut a prong out of each of these corners and it's just going to be a square bezel. I've got 20 different stone sizes. I'm going to have to make this 20 times. It'd be nice if I could make it once, import it in, and then this this square is part of the block, but the offset is done through history. And then you build the whole block, you build the whole bezel around it off of this 0.5 millimeter offset, and then you can change that stone size to whatever you want. You always have a 0.5 millimeter bezel to go with it. Or like with my shank here, this works great, but if I want to split shank, well, okay, so I bend it to one side and then mirror it, but it's a split shank going to a pear head. Well, now I need it to be a little bit different on this side than on this side, because a pear doesn't have any symmetry. I can't just take my shank and import it a second time. Shank import file. Now I get a second one, and watch what happens when I update this. All right. Nope. I clicked the wrong button. Update this. All right, that one updates, but what happens when I update this one? No way, they both have history. So that's got one history record, but there's two curves. No, it would be this one and this one that there should be a clash on. Okay, so right now it is working, but the history on these two are part of the same record. Bad things are going to happen. Rhino uses GUIDs to identify everything. So in the history record at 202, there is this, and it's duplicated here at a different index. At some point, this will crash because these got duplicated. These surfaces both started off with the same ID, but Rhino, when it brought it in, said, oh, we're going to have a crash on this unique identifier. Every one of them has to be unique. We're going to have a crash, so we're going to change this unique identifier. That usually breaks history. It did not. So the bug is they're not updating. They're not looking for collisions in history records, which is something that they need to fix. So I don't know at what point that's going to crash, but I'm going to undo it and just tell you, you can't bring in the same thing with history twice. Usually the history is broken the moment you bring it in. The fact that that was running with duplicate IDs, I'm willing to bet money that that would crash Rhino at some point in the near future. So let's get out our roundstone. And then we want to turn off all the junk. We want to turn off our curves and our box and just work with, and the object should pretty much always be locked. Points on, and let's get this into shape for a round, which is move. Now you can turn on snappy dragging, so you don't have to call the move command. That way you can kind of, it's just a little uncomfortable to use. But I want these guys to have, and you can hold Alt to temporarily ignore snappy. So that's a pretty uniform overlap. You know, if we look at it from, you know, this stone, we would want up 0.5 millimeter. That's a pretty good gap. And if we were going for a ring that they did not want to have a gap there, then we would just bring it in tighter. Scale 2D from 0. Something like that. That's really hard to see for some reason. Yeah, that's a pretty good bite. That's enough for the cutter to cut a seat. Oh, I didn't think about that. For these kind of halos, I would usually, like if I was doing this and I just drew my profile, you know, it would be something like that, just with softer edges. If I was making it bite in, because then when I take and drop these two down to give me snappy dragging on, snappy dragging off. When I take and bring these down, I guess that still works, because the cutter is going to take off that corner, and we can tighten this up to yeah, that still works. And then if they want more of a cushion, you know, you can come out here for a cushion, or you can do a round. Snappy dragon. This line is to make sure that you always keep these ends. These ends always have to stay on 0, and these ends always have to stay on this 45. But you can always promote something outside of junk, like these two. So you have, you know, if you start making a marquee shape, you would actually grab the two join copies, the 4 join copies, and promote those to control and break history on them. And then you could select last, points, and then you can start working on a snappy off. You can start working on, you know, making that into a marquee shape, and you're not bound by having this 45 anymore. Get back to where I broke history. Okay. Did that make sense about promoting those guys out of junk and breaking history on them? Yeah, I might throw a circle on here just for, see how close I am to round. Nope, abort. Snappy dragon. All right, so you can throw a circle on here if you want to really make sure, but a lot of times the stones taper or whatever. And actually, a lot of times I like to take the points in the middle, select control, points on. I like to take these guys right in the middle. Nope. those guys, and just give them a little bit of a bump up, or I've got Snappy on. Snappy's messing me up. Or give them a little bit of a bump down. Maybe not on a round, but emerald cuts and stuff like that, I usually have it, you know, more of a ribbony flow. Let's exaggerate it. Turn Snappy off. You know, a long emerald cut side, I might have it, that actually might be better to show instead of having it do like that. Well, I've got history here. But on a long emerald cut side, I may have it come up. But not on a round. I think that works. I think I'm happy with this. All right, I think that's I'm gonna stop it here because I'm gonna make like a dozen rings with this and then say yes, I'm gonna do it this way from now on, or no, go back to the other way of just sweeping or lofting. I usually loft, I don't sweep heads. I usually loft them. All right, am I missing a lot of messages here? Let's see. Somebody has a picture of something they want to make, but do you have a better picture? Because I cannot really make out a lot of detail on that. Just giving him a minute to see. If you guys have any questions, send them to me real quick. I'm gonna put a marker in the stream that we're going to switch to ask me anything type stuff. Yeah, that's the picture, but I can't really, I need more detail than that. Oh, I'm waiting for him, and it doesn't show him as online. So, all right, if nobody else has questions, we'll end it here. I think I'm going to try and make that video. Let me see. My channel, my videos, copy link. Okay, I think I'm going to try and use this method to redo this video, because this is 7 years ago, and I definitely don't do things this way anymore, and this is one of the more popular videos on the channel. And I think this, just look at how heavy these ISO curves are. Like, it's editable, but it's not as editable as I would like it to be. This is poor surface modeling. It's just way too many control points. So I think I'm going to redo this one with this, box mode workflow, because it really lets you adjust. Do I not have curves on? I do not have curves on. It really lets you adjust the strength of these corners. You can sharpen them up, you can loosen them. If there is a way to insert, that would be the best. If there's a way to insert curves, but I don't think there is a way to do that. You can just tighten up your corners and loosen them. And that is something that, TSplines definitely had, where you could start off with 4 and then add in lines or remove lines as you needed. Let's see, if you delete this line, I think it's going to break history for everything. Delete it. All right, edit this one. Oh, lock back on. Lock back off. Yeah, that broke history for the whole thing when we removed one. So we can't add or remove without breaking history. So I think that's just, that is something that we'll be missing. Okay, that guy's not getting back to this question, so going to end it here, guys. All right, if I redo the fleur-de-lis with this mode, I'll let you guys know. All right, later.